Good morning. Thank you for coming down here today. My name is Gill. I'm the Salt Lake County District Attorney. And today we are going to do a walkthrough of the use of force that happened on May 23rd, 2025. The use of force by UPD Officer Hunter Monson and Officer Josh Rowells and Sergeant Zach Young's use of deadly force at 157 West, 7200 South in Midvale. As is our normal process, the non-engaged agency investigative task force was invoked, and it was led by a team from the West Valley City Police Department. Here are the facts that were developed as a result of this incident. As I said, West Valley City Police Department led the investigative task force. And they conducted the investigation of the involved officers' use of force, and the protocol investigation findings were presented to us in June to the DA's office. And should any additional or different facts subsequently come to light, the opinions and the conclusions that we have reached would obviously be impacted. So here's what happened. On May 23rd at 25, at 2:22 a.m. in the morning, Mr. Pearson called 911 and reported that he just had been robbed outside of the Sportsman Warehouse. At 2:24 a.m., UPD officers were dispatched to the call and advised that the complainant is reporting that he's outside Sportsman Warehouse. A male took out a knife and took his wallet. The complainant still has eyes on the male. What's important is that in this 911 call, Mr. Pearson reported that he had just been robbed outside a Sportsman Warehouse. He did not need any medical attention, and that somebody had took a knife out and he took my wallet and stuff. That it had happened right now, and minutes ago, then he ran away. This is what he's communicating to dispatch. Mr. Pearson further reported that the person was on foot, and that actually think he's still here. Mr. Pearson further reported that he is being really weird in terms of referencing the alleged robber. He's standing over there in the corner, actually, and he could still see him, that Mr. Pierce could still see him and he could see him, and that he is wearing a hat and green shirt and not wearing shoes, but had white socks on and gray pants and is white male. Mr. Pearson reported that it was a small knife, but it was a little scary knife. Mr. Pearson reported that his name was Dustin, his phone number, and then stopped speaking with the call taker, but left nonetheless the line open. And so at 2:26 a.m., Officer Cervantes advised over the radio that she was in the area, and dispatch advised that it's going to be a white male wearing a hat, green shirt, gray pants, and white shoes. After seeing a male on his phone in front of Sportsman's Warehouse, Officer Cervantes advised that she was out with the complainant. So initially she thought that she was making contact with the complainant, but then she advised that it might actually be the suspect based on given what had been communicated to over. Officer Cervantes watched the male as he walked around the northwest corner of the Sportsman's Warehouse. As the male walked south on the sidewalk along the west side of the building, Officer Cervantes pulled into the west a lot, but remained back in her police car and waited for other officers to arrive. I think the point is that as the call came out and they were dispatched, there was fairly quick time on when the contact occurred. Sergeant Young arrived on the scene, and Officer Cervantes then pulled forward closer to the male and activated her emergency lights. As the male continued to walk south on the sidewalk, Sergeant Young pulled in facing towards the male and began giving commands over his PA system to put his hands in the air. As Officer Monson also pulled into the parking lot, and parked further south, and then he parked further south. Officers then began yelling commands to show his hand and put his hands up with their weapons drawn. As the male continued walking away with his back towards the officers at that time, Officer Monson advised over the radio that they were challenging one and that as of right now, he's uncooperative. As then they moved to the south side of Officer Monson's vehicle with Officer Cervantes and Sergeant Young there as well. Meanwhile, Officer Raul and Hernandez arrived in the area, and Officer Raul joined them. After reaching a utility box, which I will show to you, next to the sidewalk, the male began to turn to face the officers, and both hands became visible in front of him. Because he was walking away as they're yelling those commands to him. There's a point where he then pauses and turns around and starts facing them, and this is the first time when they see his hands. Officers immediately began giving commands to drop the knife. As the male advanced into the parking lot towards them, Officer Cervantes deployed her taser 2 times, but the male continued walking towards them. Officer Hernandez had also come up and also deployed his taser. And almost immediately after, Officer Monson, Raul, and Sergeant Young began firing their weapons at the male as he continued to walk towards them. The male fell to the ground and rolled across the parking lot. After the shots were fired, Officer Monson called out shots fired over the radio and requested medical. And the male then said, you can hear us faintly say, "Do it again." Officers continued giving commands to drop the knife as the male continued to roll over and put the knife to the ground. After pausing, officers approached the male, kicked the knife away, and then began to render emergency medical aid until emergency medical responders arrived. Officers subsequently identified the male as Mr. Pearson, the 911 complainant. Despite medical efforts, Mr. Pearson succumbed to his injuries and was declared deceased at the scene. Notably, the time from when commands were first given to when shots were fired was approximately 46 seconds. And also, the 3 involved officers refused to give statements to the investigators, as is their constitutional rights. We were able to use, and which I will share with you now, video from body-worn cameras, and also from the Sportsman Warehouse, which was very critical in helping us to make our determinations, as well as the statements from the 2 non-shooting officers that were also brought to us. So at this time, Keith, would you please go ahead? Now, let me set this up. So what you're going to hear here is the 911 call that comes to law enforcement, to dispatch. And as that 911 call is occurring, then you will see it's going to go from dark to a Sportsman Warehouse, because we were able to then sync up at the right time of that surveillance. So that's why you'll see, starting with a dispatch, and the contact over the dispatch will continue to occur, and then you will see the video that is synced up from the Sportsman Warehouse. So I just want to kind of set that up, because these 2 things are going to then converge. So go ahead, Keith, please.
911, what is the city and address of the emergency?
So I just got robbed outside of Sportsman's Warehouse.
Okay, what's the address there?
I'm in Midville.
Okay, do you know the address of where you're at?
I don't, actually.
Do you need medical attention?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, and tell me exactly what happened?
The guy took a knife out, and he took my wallet and stuff.
Okay, and how long ago did this happen?
Right now.
Okay, like a minute ago or a couple of minutes ago?
Yeah, a minute ago, and then he ran away.
Okay, and did you leave on foot or in the vehicle?
No, he was on foot.
You left on foot?
I actually think he's still there.
Okay, what direction did he go?
I don't know, it's being really weird. He just standing over in the corner, actually. Yeah.
Okay, I've got help started. Let me get a description of him. How old is he, was?
He's wearing a half green, a green shirt.
And he's wearing, what color?
He's not wearing shoes,
He's not wearing shoes.
and he's got white socks on.
What color is he wearing pants?
So this is where the sinking occurs.
Gray,
A what?
gray.
Gray pants?
And he's still on the phone,
Okay, did you tell what race he is? Is he white, black, this, that?
Yeah, he's white.
and he's talked about he's not wearing any shoes.
And was it like a small knife or a big knife?
It was a small knife, but it was a little scary knife.
A little scary knife? Okay.
I don't know what he's doing over there.
And what
Yeah,
is your
no,
name?
Sportsman's warehouse.
Yep, I already got help.
So he will walk.
My name's Dustin.
Sorry, what's your first name?
Dustin?
Dustin?
Yeah.
And what's the last name, Dustin?
Pearson?
And what's the phone number speaking on, Dustin?
801-755-1943.
Okay.
Will come around.
And what are you wearing so my officers are aware when they pull up?
Although he's given a description of the suspect, he doesn't give a description of himself, because he is actually given a description of himself. So he's gonna start walking. The line remains open. Dark hat, description, no shoes.
Do you see where he's standing by? Hello?
So there's the utility box that he's gonna drive up to. And as this continues to happen, you'll start to see the staging of the police officers who are responding. As I mentioned, Officer Cervantes was already there earlier, but she's waiting as she sees those officers arrive. And you can see the lights right there. Another one. They're challenging him. He's ignoring till he gets here. He pauses, and then when he turns around, they see the knife. And that's when they start giving him commands. Taser, taser. Do it again. They're rolling medical, and they will eventually move to and then start to render aid. But as they move up, one of the officers will kick them. So that gave us, now one of the challenges that we had was that the lensing on both the body-worn camera and also the Sportsman sometimes compresses distances, and so just keep that in mind. And so this next thing, go to the next one, please. So this was important for us when we looked at that from the Sportsman warehouse. This was important because this is the muzzle flash where the gun is there. So this actually helped us try to understand beyond the lenses that were available, that the proximity of how close Mr. Pearson got. And our guesstimate is probably like within 10 feet, around 10 feet or so, because you can see that, and you can see the shadow from the body, and it kind of helped us at least get a better understanding of the closeness of Mr. Pearson to one of the firing officers. So go to the next one, would you please? So this is actually a body-worn camera footage from Officer Monson. He's arriving on the scene, giving commands to Pearson to drop the knife and comply with commands. You can also hear him on the 911 call in the previous slide, as we mentioned. So go ahead and play that out, please.
Let us see your hands, bud. Let us see your hands.
And you can see the taser lasers as well.
Get your hands up, Derek. Get your hands up. You need to listen. Get your hands up, Derek. Get your head. Drop it, Derek.
That's when they recognize he does have the knife.
Drop it right now. Drop it. Drop the knife.
Tasers.
Drop it. Drop it. Drop it right now. Roll the other way right now. Roll the other way. If we want to. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
So that again gave us that vantage from Officer Monson's perspective. This next video is from Officer Cervantes' perspective. She's the first officer on the scene, but does not approach Mr. Pearson until other officers start to get up there for backup. She goes on taser for the incident, so that's also sort of captured in hers. So go ahead and play that as well.
You're gonna get tased.
Put your hands up, bro. Put them up. Get your hands up, Derek. Get your hands up. You need to listen.
Wait, how many's covered right now?
Get your hands up, Derek. Get your hands. Drop it, Derek. Drop it. Drop it.
Taser, taser, taser,
Drop it. Drop it. Drop it.
Do it again.
Drop it. Drop it. Drop it right now. Roll the other way right now. Roll the other way.
So that gave us also, but what's important that was helpful to us here was that she actually deploys the taser twice, and you can hear the pop the third time the taser is deployed, just simultaneously a fractional after when the gunfire occurs. So there were 3 attempts to taser. So the next one is Officer Rao's body-worn camera. And this captures the event, again, as it gives us another perspective. He's positioned to the left of Officer Monson and is on lethal. So it's important to understand that when officers sometimes will go up on less lethal, other officers will all go on lethal in case the taser does not effectuate the less lethal application. So go ahead and play this as well.
I'm gonna leave where I'm not find you.
So again, it allows us to sort of, again, see the positioning, but also
Drop the knife now! Drop it right now! Roll the other way right now! Roll the other way! Move away from it. Don't go up yet.
Okay. So go to the next one, if you would. So we were also able to sort of try to figure out distances. So we were able to see this objective point here and also where Mr. Pearson ends up. And that was approximately 30 feet of distance that was covered by Mr. Pearson as well. So when we started to, and then we also had a subsequent conversations with the two officers who were non-lethal. And they were able to, again, share with us their concerns that there were commands that were given, and this still, again, shows where the knife was came to rest, and that they were surprised that as they tried to taser him, tried to go less lethal, that he was non-responsive, but continued to, again, advance towards them. And so as we looked at the totality of all this information, we conclude that the facts in this case, together with reasonable inferences about the involved officer's decision to use deadly force, would likely support a finding that they reasonably believed deadly force was necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury to themselves or to each other. As such, we believe that a jury would likely find that the facts and reasonable inferences satisfied the elements of affirmative legal defense of justification, and therefore afford them a legal defense to a criminal charge. Accordingly, we decline to file criminal charges in this matter. I'm happy to answer any other questions. And I think, go ahead, I'm sorry. And of course, that was the knife that was recovered from the scene.
It appears to be a case where he purposely called the cops so they could shoot him. It's like a real suicide by cop to put them in a bad situation.
So I did have an opportunity with my team this morning to meet with them. We met for about an hour, hour and a half, and I think it's really important. And one, of course, this is their loved one. This is their family member. This is somebody that they care about deeply, and this is, of course, a tragic loss to them. And you and I are certainly have a different perspective of looking at it, and I have to afford them their sensitivity as well. They take umbrage to the idea that this was suicide by cop in this fashion. What I mean is that they believe that there is something wrong with a system where somebody who may want to harm themselves, that we comply by actually harming them. And so I understand where they come from. They're concerned about that and stating it that way. And to them, that is an indication of a broken system. But to your point, Pat, as you asked that question, the objective facts that we do have is that I have a person who is reaching out to 911, and he is communicating to dispatch that he has been involved in a strong-arm robbery where a knife has been used. He is giving to them and explaining to them the description of the person. In fact, he says he was robbed, his wallet was taken, and then says he's still here. And he's looking at me weirdly. It's kind of weird. And so he, I think, is communicating an urgency there. And at the same time, he's also giving a description of what the person is wearing. A hat, green clothing, gray pants. He's walking without any shoes. And that is what's being communicated. We also were able to see that within the dispatch logs that were being sent, there was a description that matched that was being communicated with one small difference. The dispatch said it as white shoes, not white socks. And so that information is being communicated to them. And we cannot ignore the fact that when the call does come in and the dispatcher is asking, what are you wearing? He does not give a description of what he's wearing as the complainant, but he has given what the description is. And so we can't ignore that fact. And it is something that's there. And that he also has a knife. and then he's given his self-description. And then when he is confronted and given commands, he starts to move towards them. And as I said, 3 attempts as less lethal were attempted, and as he continues to go there. So I think it is certainly one of the inferences you can make is that he wanted, he was in a, clearly he's in a state of distress, and he is making that confrontation with law enforcement and is following through that. And I think it is inferable from the objective facts that he wanted that encounter.
But when the family says the system is broken, because are they did you get any hint? I know this is beyond the scope of your investigation, but did you get a sense of
Yes.
had he attempted suicide in the past? Had he tried
No.
other methods of getting help? Or was this the first time they knew something was wrong with when he did this?
Without going into too much, I think, and I want to respect their privacy, the frustration for them is that if somebody is, and I'll be very blunt, their thing was that this idea of suicide by cop, while it is uttered, takes away from which seems contradictory to them, which is a person who wants to die at the hands of police officers, then we comply by using force against them. I think that is the gist of their concern that they have. And of course, they've lost a loved one. And so they're, of course, for them, this is at night. There's a wide space. They question the tactics that were used, and I completely understand where they are coming from as they share that with us from their perspective. And so their question is, could not some other tactics have been used? Could there have been not more done, given that you see this person, he's moving slowly, you see this person, yes, he's granted up there. What was the immediacy of the urgency that compelled the use of that force? And as I've said to you before, we have a safe haven and sanctuary use of lethal force that occurs, and we have to, I cannot discount from my analysis, which is a criminal analysis, that it was unreasonable, beyond a reasonable doubt, for those officers to feel threatened, to feel that they were in harm's way after less lethal was used. A strong arm robbery had been alleged. The suspect is there and is continuing to advance towards them with a knife in their hand. So that is the factual reality. But I understand the frustration that they're trying to communicate, and I understand where they're coming from.
Did you find anything regarding what led to that moment while the person was there? If he had any history of mental illnesses or mental conditions that might have led to him making that call, and all those circumstances that led to this, led to that?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the mental health issues because that was not really relevant. But what I can say is that I want to be, again, respectful, that this was a person who I think had been sober for a long period of time, and I think had fallen off the wagon, and clearly from, you can hear on the voice that he seems a little slurred, little slow in the speech pattern, and I think those are reasonable inferences to be drawn. But this was not something, at least the sense I got, typical behavior for him, but it was a tragic culmination of facts that came together in a scenario that unfolded in our community, with a loss to a family and the officers who had to who found themselves in this tragic situation. What else? Anybody else?
Maybe just finally, can you talk, obviously the officers didn't do anything wrong in that scenario, but could they have done things differently? I mean, you talked in the past about giving people space, like that guy had a whole parking lot and no one else around him, the officers could they have backed off, or is that just not the game plan policy?
I think as I've shared with you, over my tenure as the district attorney, I've unfortunately have had to watch over 150 officer-involved shootings. And I understand what the law is, I understand the filter that I have to make my judgments based on from a criminal prosecution perspective and the challenge that's there. We have multiple law enforcement agencies that feed into our office, so we get to look at different things. And tactics are really the domain of each law enforcement agency. But it also would behoove us to not look at the body of the stuff, at least from our perspective, and I'm just talking, you asked that question to me, so I'm trying to respect that and answer it. From my team and us, we have watched over 150 of these. And unfortunately, the nature of policing and the nature of our communities, these confrontations are going to occur. And the question is, are we learning anything from that? And what do those tactics teach us? And it is not always necessarily the black letter of the law, because there's no reason, there's no expectation in Utah that you have to retreat, right? But I think if the question is that we're going to continue to have these interactions, that it may be worthwhile for us to think about the context in which it happens, the exigency that is being created, what are safe distances, and what does that look like? And that is a controversial sort of a conversation in terms of looking at it. But I think it is one that we need to keep leaning into, because as you observed and the family observed, it wasn't like that there were crowded place. It wasn't like it was late at night. It was like that there were people around that did that. What was that flexibility? What does it look like when you confront somebody in that scenario? And unfortunately, I've seen too many of them over my career here, that it begs us to why we are not going back and maybe looking more urgently or more thoughtfully or more deliberately about what that may look like in the context that we find ourselves. Now, having said that, I do not want to even suggest in any way that the danger isn't real and the officers are not feeling that. But I think scenarios like this and the questions from the family raise that, what are we doing and how are we operationalizing the experiences and learning from this incident, And again, I want to be respectful, but what is unique about this family, that this family, as we talked, and I'll just put it in general, for this family, this was a family member, both immediate and distant, that this family has had two members in their family who have been had these encounters with law enforcement. And I think they are in a position to ask those questions, and regardless of whether you and I agree with them, I think it does speak to the impact that it has in our community, and when it has impacts on families, and we owe it to ourselves in our professionalism and to our community to constantly lean into how we can come up with better responses and what does that training look like. But those are more broader questions, both for our policymakers and for the application as tactics for each law enforcement agency. But I think the question that you raised and the question that they raised tells us that we need to continue to work in this space, because we're going to continue to have these encounters and these losses of life, which are tragic in our community. Yes.